Here are some of the chilling inspirations behind the Batman's Riddler. This is Nerdist Now. It's been said that a good Batman story is only as good as its villains, which if that's the case, The Batman has set a new high watermark for what makes a truly terrifying villain. The Batman pulled out all of the villainous stops with a roster of antagonists for the Caped Crusader to fight. The most unsettling and disturbing is obviously the movie's adaptation of the Riddler. A major factor in creating such an unpleasant character may come from the fictional and real-life monsters that inspired this version of Gotham's criminal genius. Now we're going to be talking about the Batman, obviously, so if you haven't seen the movie yet, go take the first flaming Batmobile out of here. Still here? Fantastic. Like the video says, we're going to be examining the Batman's version of the Riddler and discuss the obvious inspirations behind the character, and a few others we picked up while watching the latest film. And if you want to read more about these inspirations, both myself and Ty Gooden have you covered with in-depth analysis over on Nerdist.com. The biggest shift in established character norms in Matt Reeves' The Batman, aside from Colin Farrell doing whatever it is he's doing, I got you! Is the Riddler. Yes, the real-life Zodiac killer is a big influence on the character, and we'll get to them shortly. But Reeves borrowed more than a little from David Fincher's work and John Carpenter's classic slasher Halloween. In the very first scene of the movie, the Riddler watches the mayor of Gotham playing with his son in their penthouse on Halloween night. The opening sequence of John Carpenter's 1978 masterpiece Halloween is a Steadicam POV shot from the point of view of some unseen watcher. Part of the way through this figure walking through the house with a pair of teenage lovers in it, a hand picks up a clown Halloween mask. For the rest of the sequence, we see through the eye holes of the mask, which looks not unlike the Riddler's binocular view. That is, of course, until the movie brings us inside with the killer. We'll get back to this opening scene shortly, but Reeves has the Riddler play one more Michael Myers cover further into the movie. District Attorney Gil Colson, played by Peter Sarsgaard, stumbles back to his car after a night of drinks and drugs at the Penguin's Iceberg Lounge. When he gets in, Gil notices the windows and windshield are all fogged up. Confused, he wipes a bit of it off and too intoxicated to realize he's not alone. An identical scene plays out in Halloween. The character Annie walks to her car to go get her boyfriend Paul. She forgets something and goes back in the house, but has left the door unlocked. When she returns, the windshield is suddenly all fogged up. She wipes a bit of it off, but it's too late. The Shape pops up from the back seat and grabs her, and we see Annie meet her grisly end. The Riddler's heavy breathing and almost nightmarish ability to slip in and out of places aren't just inspired by Michael Myers. The sequence at the beginning of the film not only echoes Halloween, but the opening of the 1971 film Dirty Harry. We see a very similar scene viewed through a sniper scope aimed by that movie's villain, the Scorpio Killer, another movie killer who was inspired by the mysterious Zodiac Killer. For those who don't know, the Zodiac Killer is a pseudonym for a man or men or people whose identity we still do not know. More on that later. His crimes drew the attention of authorities in Northern California, specifically the San Francisco Bay Area, during the late 1960s. The shooting deaths of high school students Betty Lou Jensen and David Arthur Faraday on December 20th, 1968 in Benicia, California, are the first known murders attributed to the Zodiac Killer. Following another dual murder in July 1969, someone sent 3 almost identical letters to the Vallejo Times-Herald, the San Francisco Chronicle, and the San Francisco Examiner on August 1st, 1969. The anonymous writer took credit for the recent crimes, but what really threw publishers, readers, and authorities alike was the inclusion of a 408-symbol cryptogram divided into thirds among each paper. These ciphers are almost identical to the ones that the Riddler leaves for Batman to find at every crime scene. The Zodiac also claimed that the symbol held their true identity within the puzzle, and his letters were often, no pun intended, riddled with misspellings and jumbled thoughts, hinting at his possible state of mind. Very similar to the El Rata La Rata mishap we see in The Batman. Dano's voice for the Riddler is very likely inspired by the Zodiac as well. His long pauses and labored breaths that dip into hollow tones sound very similar to the only recorded audio of the supposed Zodiac.
Who am I speaking with?
This is the Zodiac speaking.
The biggest mystery surrounding the Zodiac is the fact that he was never caught. And over the years, the Zodiac was presumed active, multiple people claimed to be the criminal. A very unnerving scenario that the Batman applies to the end of the film. We would be remiss not to mention the very clear inspiration that is drawn from the David Fincher movie Seven. Not just the bleak, rainy, and corrupted aesthetic of Gotham City, but with the Riddler's journals as well. The John Doe Killer in Seven and the Riddler definitely share a myopic view of the world, as we learn from both of their many, many nihilistic scribblings in their dense library of notebooks.
What sick, ridiculous puppets we are, and what a gross little stage we dance on.
Our last possible source of inspiration is, unfortunately, Dennis Rader, also known as the BTK killer, who operated from 1974 to 1991 and was eventually caught in 2005. Not a big fan of talking about him, so I'm going to try to be brief. In The Batman, we learned that Edward Nashton works for the city, which means that he would have had access to private information on some of the Gotham elite that he sees walking out of the Iceberg Lounge. Dennis Rader worked as a home security specialist for ADT and would often use that as his way of entering and waiting in people's homes. The Riddler, lurking in the shadows of the mayor's office, feels equally upsetting as the depictions of BTK we see in the Netflix series Mindhunter. Dennis Rader also sent multiple forms of correspondence to the police, including riddles, crosswords, and even an autobiography he was working on. Thankfully, he was caught after he decided to send the police a floppy disk, which was then used to trace the metadata back to Rader. For those who don't know, a floppy disk is a piece of plastic that can hold half of an MP3, and it's also good for catching pathetic losers like Dennis Rader. And that concludes our chilling dive into what helped inspire the deeply disturbed version of the Riddler. But tell us, what do you think? Is the Riddler the new most terrifying Batman villain ever put to screen? Which villains do you want to see in a sequel? And where do you fall on Colin Farrell's Penguin? Let us know in the comments below, and for less upsetting breakdowns than this video, stay tuned to Nerdist.com.